Okay, so certain things that we need to make sure, some housekeeping items, if you will. Okay, so here we go. Course is intended for students considering post-secondary studies, right, that require math prerequisite. This pathway provides students with a mathematical understanding and critical thinking skills that have been identified for specific post-secondary programs of study. The topics studied from this course, right, will be applied both in grade 11 applied or grade 11 pre-cal math. Okay, so I don't know if you understand that, but you are now taking IAPR, right? Intro to Applied and Pre-Cal. That's what we call it, right? And there are really three paths that you can go afterwards, okay? You can take Pre-Cal, PCMR 3S, that's grade 11 Pre-Cal. You can take APMR 3S, which is grade 11 Applied, or you can take SMR 3S, which is essential. So pre-cal, applied, essential, right? We recommend a 70 or higher in this course to be successful in pre-cal. It's not trying to stop you from going that route, but 70 is highly recommended because we see a lot more success if you get a 70 in this course and then move on to pre-cal, right? Because once you're in pre-cal, if you keep your 70, there's a grade 12 pre-cal that you go to, right? And then the APMR4S, right? The grade 12 pre-cal, applied, sorry, or the grade 12 essential, right? 60 or higher, so between 60 and 70 keeps you in the applied stream, which is really good. The applied stream is really good as well. I teach it. You use a graphing calculator, fancy graphing calculator. It's really good. It's accepted in for a lot of post-secondary programs. Applied is fine. Okay. Sometimes applied students that took pre-cal will take applied just for the fun of it, and they struggle because there's a lot of word problems in there. So it's not necessarily an easier course. Okay, it's just different. And then there's essential. That's the stream, which is also really good. Like in grade 12 essential, you learn a lot about vehicle finance and home finance and like what's involved in buying a home, and we calculate a whole bunch of stuff there as well. So just so you know, a lot of students don't know this, but these are the three streams that you can go after this semester, after you've done IPR. Okay, so here are some topics that we'll be studying: measurement, trig, factors and products. Like these here, these two will be the first two that you're gonna encounter: factors and products, roots and power. So these are the first two chapters. So they're heavy, and we do that for a reason, because we keep on bringing them up throughout the semester. Okay. Assessment and evaluation, right? So you have your formative, which is just, we look at your participation, entrance and exit slips. Are you doing your homework? Assignments, projects. I'm really big on homework, but I don't check homework per se. Like I don't do homework checks, but I do a lot of ACs. I don't know if that name might be something new to you, but here it is: accountability checks. This is summative. This is what actually adds up to your final mark, right? And it's influenced by what you do here. Oh, somebody trying to say something? Oh, okay. Never mind. So ACs is basically how I check homework. It's like a short quiz 3 to 4 times a week. And it's not very long, but it basically quizzes you on how are you doing so far. It helps me to know where you're at. It helps you to know where you are at, right? So it's kind of like informative tool back and forth. There are quizzes, tests, portfolios. I don't really do a whole lot of portfolios and exams if there will be any exams, right? That is all pending because things change the way the pandemic develops, right? We kind of make adjustments to that. But ACs, quizzes, and tests basically are my three ways of assessing you summatively, right? It says it here mainly consists of four components: ACs, quizzes, and tests, and then the final assessment, which will most likely be in the form of a test, really not like a full 3-hour exam, right? And so you have your ACs. These act as pop quizzes and will be administered 3 to 4 times per week. It is based on what we've covered so far and will be marked by each student. Notice that, right? And we will do that together. So some of you will be uncomfortable with that because you're so used to my teacher will mark everything, right? And then I get it back. I actually go over the AC with you and I tell you, okay, like this is what you're supposed to get. Take off half a mark if you miss the units. Take off half a mark if you don't have an equal sign. Like I'll walk you through it. It's almost like a lesson after a quiz, right? And you immediately know where you got it wrong and where you need to improve. Can also be seen as a homework check. They're very important to prepare you for the test, okay? So even though percentage-wise they will not be as heavy, they do add up significantly, right? Like it prepares you for the test. And then you have quizzes similar to ACs, but will be marked by teacher, right? So that's the difference there. So even if the paper says ACs and I say, no, I will mark this one, I will consider it a quiz. And there are usually 1 or 2 quizzes per unit, maybe more, but usually that's what it is. Tests, there will be 6 to 7 tests administered throughout the semester. Final assessment, this covers all topics learned throughout the semester. The content will vary depending on how much was covered, pending on disruptions due to the pandemic. And here are your weights. And I tell you, tests, it would be 55. Quizzes and ACs are 15 together. But I can tell you this, that quizzes are probably closer to 10% and the accountability checks are 5%, so 10 and 15. So the ACs aren't as heavy, but really don't look at it that way. Just look at it, what can I learn from it to improve for the upcoming tests, okay? And the weights will vary. I might have to, like last semester, I had to take some of the final assessment marks and spread it throughout the semester because we weren't able to do a full exam. So we couldn't make it that heavy, right? All right, next page. This is just standard, right? Like if you want to know what the percentage would put you at. I talked about the prereqs here, right? Like on the back side. So that's just for you to see. Delivery of content during COVID. I've talked about it. You know that already. I'm basically doing meets every day, and everybody sees the same thing. Remember that your period is your period. If another teacher can't all of a sudden just decide to take up my class, right? So you can actually have a valid reason to say, no, it's Mr. Dirksen's class. Not everybody streams live, so I understand that, but that's like, it's basically whenever you're scheduled to be with me, you're with me, right? Lessons will be recorded, posted on YouTube. Should not replace the need for you to join because I'll still be taking attendance and we mark you absent if you're not participating or if you're not there. I talk about joining classroom, but the way I've done it, I've invited you, so you should be good to go there. The class codes, they're posted here. IAPR is way over there, but not that you need it. I think you'll be fine. Talk about attendance here, next page. Okay, this is important here. a lot of times students for whatever reason missed, right? And they say, "Can I do the AC today, even though it was yesterday?" Right? I'm like, "We already marked it as a class, right? Like I can't let you now. Like, and the video will most likely be posted. So what's the point, right? Like it's not fair to the rest of the class either. So I'm not letting you do that. If it's a valid, justified reason, I'll probably just excuse you from it, right? If it's a valid reason why you missed, and there's strikes, right? Like if you are one of those students where I notice, wait a minute, why is this happening all the time? Why is your car breaking down every time, right? Then I'll question it a bit more. But other than that, it shouldn't be an issue. And I'm aiming to administer all tests in class. If you miss it, you have to make up right away when you come back. Okay, that's important. And you have to seek me out. Don't just hide in the back of the course hoping that I'm not going to notice you. It's actually you missing out, right? Because I'm not going to have a mark for you on that. Here, homework will be assigned daily. You're expected to complete it in order to be successful in this course. Um, we don't have a math help room, but if you request it every once in a while, right, like there's no harm done. Like if you come a little earlier or you stay a little bit after, depending on where it is, when the class is happening, that's fine. We can help you out there. And sometimes if you email me, I can actually answer quite a few questions via email. And if that doesn't help, I sometimes make a short video and I actually post it for everybody if I see that the question comes up a lot. Okay, so there it is. There's the one. This my professor in university said, you will only learn math by doing math. You will not learn math by watching me do math or by talking about math. You have to do the math. You have to actually do it yourself, right? So that's that. Um, that's it for the course outline. We're going to do a little bit of a review on fractions. So I'm going to spend today, tomorrow, and possibly maybe for sure 2 days reviewing prior concepts. So I bombarded students here with handouts. Uh, that's just because I want to make sure you have it. I think that one more thing that I need to talk about is distractions. When you're in class, you're pretty good, right? I can call you out if you're distracted. But when students are at home, I asked, right? Like, what are some things that are preventing you from being successful, right? And they said distractions at home. Like they were listening to music. Maybe there was a video game going on the side. Maybe they were in a part of the home where it was just not ideal, right? So don't set up in a place where it's loud and there's like people walking by and being disruptive. Try to set up in a good location, right? Where it's quiet, where you're not distracted, and turn off all the tabs. Okay. If your Google Meet is crashing all the time, it's probably because you're having too many things going on, right? Like there's too many things open. That's basically what I was told too, right? Sometimes my recordings would crash and the tech person told me, well, you have too many things going at the same time. I'm like, okay, lesson learned, right? And so focus. It's not going to be easy, okay? I know you're going to be at home frustrated sometimes. Like, why can't we just have classes as normal, classes as usual, right? You're going to be frustrated. I understand that. I am frustrated too. It's easy for me to say, I know it's different, but just keep on fighting, keep on pressing, work hard. It's going to pay off, right? It's going to get warmer. That's the nice thing about second semester. And we're going to get through this, okay? So here we go. Let's do a little bit of fraction review. And so if you grab a piece of loose leaf, even if you're at home, oh, I actually wrote 2021. That's a good start. integers and fractions. That's what we're going to call this. An integer is any positive or negative whole number including 0. When adding integers, we move to the right on the number line. Basically get a larger number. When subtracting, we essentially move to the left. Smaller number. Are we doing back row side? Are you able to see this well? Yeah. Recall if two negatives are beside each other, it will turn positive. So if you have a negative like this and a negative right beside it, it turns positive. Okay. If a negative, I will change this wording. Sorry about that. I think it's better to say it this way. If opposite signs are beside each other, you get a negative. So negative and positive like this would be a negative answer, or right, you have a positive first and then a negative, it's still negative, right? So if the signs are opposite, you always get a negative answer. And let's do some examples here. -4 plus 10 . If you have a -4 plus 10, right, this will be a subtraction, right? You're subtracting, and the sign of the greatest number is the one that prevails, right? So this will be +6, like that. Next question, if you have -4 minus 16, like that. I'm going to slow down a little bit. Okay, so if you have a negative like this, -4 minus 16, it is implied that 16 technically is positive, right? Like inside the bracket, there's a positive 16, right? Because you're just looking at what's inside. So technically, this expression turns into -4, negative and a positive. They're opposite signs. You end up with a -16 like this. Okay? And I don't know if you remember this, but when you have both numbers with the same sign, you're adding negatives, right? So this would give you -20. C, let's say you have 12 minus -1 minus 3, like that. So we're evaluating these expressions, right? And it's always best to have, right, like go work downwards, and so have one equal sign per line, because you're saying that the previous line is equal to the next line is equal to the next line, right? Because all three here are equal to each other. Okay, so what do we do here? You want to get rid of the brackets. That's your ultimate goal. So you put down 12. If you have a negative and a negative, that turns into a positive, right? So we essentially get rid of the brackets and say, hey, that's really +1. There's a negative there, and technically there's a positive in there, right? So opposite signs always turn negative. So -3 like that. So this will be 12 plus 1, which is 13, minus 3, which is 10. D, -18 minus 11 minus -4. I'm going to start my next row here. E is 20 minus -12 minus 30. Let's just keep it at that for now. So reading this first line, we want to get rid of the brackets, so we need to evaluate the signs, right? So -18 is just -18. There's a negative and a positive here, right? So those are opposite signs, so that turns into a negative. So maybe I will do that because these are you may have been a while since you last took any math courses, right? So that's a negative because they're opposite signs. 11, and then negative and a negative, right? Turn positive like that. So it's up to you how you want to do this. I would add the negatives here. So this would give me -29 plus 4, right? I'm adding negatives, and I have just like now I have a negative number and a positive. The negative number is bigger, so it'll be -25. Okay. E. Slow down, Mr. Darshan. It's the first day. Okay. I would like to start fractions. That's what I'm pushing a little bit here, pushing the envelope. But that's okay. It's the first day. So this one here, I get 20. Negative and a negative will turn positive. And this is just minus 30, right? There's no bracket there. Don't worry about the sign, just follows it. And these are both positives. I'm going to add them up. That's 32 positive minus 30, which equals to 2. Right? So you kind of want to bunch up the positives and the negatives and then only be left with two numbers if possible. And then see, like, out of these two numbers, positive is bigger, right? The 32 is bigger than the 30, so your final answer will be positive in this case. It's the difference, and it's the same here, right? You basically are going to subtract them, but the negative is the bigger number here, so that's the sign that stays. That's how I look at it. Okay, F, negative 3 minus negative 7 plus negative 15, G, negative 12 plus 7 minus 8. So let's evaluate this. By the way, there's a difference between expressions. When I say expressions and equations, when you get something like this and there's no equal sign in it, that means it's an expression. It's not an equation, okay? So negative 3 minus and minus gives you plus 7. Plus and minus, right? Positive and negative will give you a negative 15. Watch what I'm going to do next. I'm going to bunch up my negatives. So negative 3 and negative 15, right? That gives you negative 18 plus the 7. So now you have all negatives bunched, all positive bunched, right? You know that you're going to have to subtract them because they have opposite signs, and the negative will stay. Okay? So negative 11 is your answer there. Last one, negative 12 plus 7, right? Because this is technically a positive here. Negative and positive is negative. Bunch up our negatives, right? 12 and 8, you have negative 20 plus 7. They have opposite signs, so you'll subtract them, and the sign of the bigger number will stay. There you have it. I'm going to start on the back of my page, but if you want to continue, that's up to you. I'm going to talk fractions now. Fractions is something that students struggle with throughout high school. Fractions There are two types of fractions. You have your mixed and you have your improper. Right? A mixed fraction has a whole number in front and a fraction following it. So it's 2 1/3, right? How do you go from here to the improper again? So we're going to make an arrow. I'm going to use this as an example and convert it to the improper, right? So what we will do is multiply the denominator by whole number. Then add numerator. And this is just it's paraphrasing what you're supposed to do. So once you have that written down, I'll just tell you this. The improper fraction has to have this denominator, right? You're talking thirds, so you know for sure that this is going to be thirds, right? That denominator follows you here. It's going to be a fraction out of thirds. Then you take that same denominator, it kind of revolves around the denominator. You go 3 times 2, which is 6, plus 1, which is 7. So this fraction would be 7/3. That's how you convert a mixed number to improper. Right? So you went 2 times 3 plus 1 gave you that top number there. Okay, so here when adding or subtracting fractions, we need a common denominator. I think that one you should remember. When multiplying we cancel then multiply across. When dividing, we multiply by the reciprocal. What is that? You flip it, right? Of the second term. Make sure all answers are reduced, if possible. Convert mixed fraction to improper. Before solving. Right, so if you have a mixed, make sure you convert before solving. 3/4 plus 1/5. When you have something like this and the denominators are different, we need to find the lowest common denominator. Okay, so we'll call lowest common denominator. Okay, and a lot of times if you multiply the two, you'll get it. Okay, so in this case it would be 20, right? You've got to find a number where both of them fit into. So the closest one you can find. So in this case it would be 20, right? So you make this out of 20 and out of 20. Right? The 4 goes into 25 times, right? So that means that you have to go 3 times 5 and write this as a 15. The 5 goes into 24 times, so you have to go 1 times 4 to get 420. So you're rewriting them in terms of 20, basically. And that gives you, now you can add, so that's 19 out of 20. And I think I'm going to have to stop there, folks. We're going to continue this tomorrow.